Chapter 2, The Lost Philosophe. Voices that scream are yours, not mine. Mine is a quiet one that wishes nothing more than to be heard and understood. Existing are millions of voices foreign to my own. I've heard all of them while growing. I was young, so I listened. The crowds were violent with rage and hate. The masses told me to follow. I did until I decided to follow myself again. I liked me a little. Trying to silence them, I struggled to understand myself. I can never fully understand myself. For we are too complex and live deprived of the means to an end in our search for ourselves, the human race. All of us are made of each other, scuttling around in a reality of our own, formed from us and by us. Wrong it is of me to imply the total when they are portrayed as the majority, which doesn't exist, for no two are alike. Normal is different. The patterns we look for are ever-changing, never constant, all in the mind. Reality is nature, and we, contrary to popular belief, are animals. I stand in my imperfection, and so do you. I thrive on control and power, as do you. You may do all that you wish. I may do the same. When I was young, I had a recurring dream that I was floating in black space with nothing around me. Yet, I had a sense that something was surrounding me, and I could only describe the feeling as being surrounded by Legos. I could feel various points of pressure as I looked out into infinite space in every direction. This dream, which was more like pre-sleep awareness, scared me many times. I have since come to realize that it was not a dream at all, but an awareness of where I am in this universe. I am in the middle of nowhere with no apparent purpose. My first encounter with losing someone close to me had a lot to do with how I perceived death. I was about 6 years old when I arrived at school to see that a certain playground structure had been altered. At Farallon View Elementary School on the California coast, at the far end of the playground, there was a structure that consisted of about 10 huge pillars arranged in a circle. They had to be about 2 feet by 2 feet around and about 20 feet tall. These pillars had chains that ran through them, connected to tires that usually laid upon the ground. On this morning, upon our arrival to school, all of these tires were suspended about 2 feet off the ground. All of the children from all 6 grades ran to this structure while all other playground apparatus sat empty. My only friend at the time lived across the street from the house that I had just been adopted into. His name was Jonas. I watched as Jonas ran around the old but new and exciting apparatus, trying to find a place to sit and swing. As he was running, one of the old, moldy, rotting pillars started to fall. Jonas continued to run around the circle like the cruelest game of duck, duck, goose imaginable. The timing could not have been more precise. The pillar fell directly on top of Jonas. All the children rushed to lift the pillar from his body, but the entire school couldn't move it, and neither could Jonas from underneath what came to be his final encounter with the universe. I did not cry, and many people around me encouraged me to. I understood that he would not be existing anymore. At Jonas's funeral ceremonies, I wondered what everyone else was doing and saying, thought to myself, what was this better place that people were referring to? What was so wrong with this place for him to go to a better one? I did not believe that he had gone anywhere. He simply was not. This reaction from myself continued to puzzle me throughout my life. Death continued to puzzle me throughout my life, as people around the world seemed to believe anything and everything about the subject. I remember this experience shaping the path that led to what you are reading here regarding the subject that we love to refrain from talking about, that we do refrain from talking about it, is subject to change. This has been torturous. I have come to discover that entire societies of people can believe anything. You were supposed to go to school to see what has been done. I walked with a boy, Scott Maneri, after school one day to a building that he needed to go to. I was about 10 when I questioned the nature of his visit. He said he was going to catechism. I still do not know at 32 what catechism is. I assume now that it was a program where children were sent to learn about some religion. I still do not know what catechism is, nor have I bothered to find out which faith this practice belongs to. I may learn before the end of all this, but I admit that which I do not know, and this book needs to happen now. Back to this building. The building was stout with pillars in the front and looked like some kind of school. I remember most clearly the feeling in talking to him and in taking in the nature of this building and the situation. It didn't feel good. I got the feeling that my friend was being brainwashed. That is exactly how I felt at 9 years old. I remember thinking how glad I was that I didn't have to do anything like that. I had a hard enough time being dragged out of the car and out of the house, kicking and screaming that I would not have swimming lessons forced upon me, and how I enjoyed trying to figure out everything on my own without someone telling me to believe nothing other than what they are telling me without question. I knew that at school I could learn anything, however I wanted, whenever I wanted. At school, they did not know how the universe was created, but they had a pretty good start, as it appeared to me. I see the stars every night. I see our star every day. We just take a very good look at where we are now and go backwards as accurately as possible. At this age, I knew what was happening in front of me. I knew Scott did not choose this. He was being sent there by his parents. His parents were most likely influenced by their parents, and so on. I knew this had happened and was happening all over the world. I knew it was happening everywhere that I had been. I saw the crosses everywhere. I asked questions to receive no great answers. I knew that I could not accept force-fed information and base my life on it. I knew that no one on the planet seemed to know much of anything, or else this boy would not be walking into this building like this. Many times thereafter, I walked with him to that building, only to feel like I was saying goodbye to some part of him every time he turned his back to walk. I vowed that I would find out what was going on in the universe, and hopefully someone would beat me to it. It was this encounter in the passing of my friend that I remember as being the point when I began to fight everything typically social. I rebelled in many ways without knowing what I was rebelling against, so that anything in my path could be worked out somehow. It was at this age when I started seeing bad things happening to good people, both in reality and in my head. In reality, I saw total disarray of human mental existence. In my mind, I saw all of it just going away at any cost. Somehow, I knew that we could know better and thus do better, act better. I now understand that this is all mental. Everything that we have built and done, the thoughts of the past linger longer than most of us realize. The actions of the past civilizations were a result of not knowing our position. The actions that I speak of were cruel, abusive, oppressive, and downright hateful. You feel how those thoughts linger in you today. I will remind you here that humans have never been wiser. We are not here to destroy each other. We are not here to create each other either. We simply reorganize our energetic patterns of existence. Then we perceive those reorganizations as good or bad. Belief systems are energetic patterns that we use to change our existence. How humans have historically spread their belief system has been and remains today atrocious. Hopefully, this one fares better by committing appropriate cognicide. My word, I think. Cognicide. The intentional destruction of cognitive thoughts, thought patterns, and processes. This can be done on any level, from patterns and processes that exist in an individual, to familial patterns, to social group patterns, to patterns that exist in every individual on the planet. Also referred to, by me, as cognitive evolution. This process follows the Hegelian triadic model of pitting theses against antithesis to create a synthesis of the two that become a new thesis, only to be pitted up against a new antithesis to form a new synthesis, and so on to infinity. I saw Scott a few years later after having moved to Alaska from California and just started high school. His parents, I could see and hear it emanating out of them, were terrified of him. Outside of Half Moon Bay, as he had bulked up quite a bit, and he swore at them incessantly. I could not believe the power that he seemed to have over them. I did not stay long for that visit. I simply said, "Hi, been a long time, what's your number? I gotta move on, and take care." I do not think that his religion did this to him. I think that this was his nature. Religion did not help him to discover his nature and deal with it in any healthy way by that point in his life. Religion does not do anything that the person does not do to themselves. With my degree in life experience, I have seen where those tendencies lead, and it ain't nothing nice never. I have not communicated with him since, which was necessary, as you will come to understand. There are billions that I think about. At around 14 years of age, I did not really know how to give him as much love as possible, and by that I mean to specify love manifested in ways that promote an awareness of his circumstance, the position he was born into, the brain that he was born into. I hope that you are okay, Scott. My mother is a New Zealand woman. My father was an African-American naval officer who I've not had the pleasure of meeting. She thought New Zealand would not be great during those times for a person of my ethnic blend, and she was enjoying life a lot. I've never held my adoption against her, although most people do something like that. So in America, you get labeled right away, I learned. I was black and white. Wow, what a concept. Talk about a lucky kid. I was adopted by a beautiful black and white couple. I was happy about that. I was not happy about losing my mother. My birth mother had me born in Oakland, California, October 10th, 1975, so that I would be a U.S. citizen, only to take me back to New Zealand, then to Australia for a bit. I have some ideas about what we did, but no clear memories of those days. We traveled back to the U.S. as she went through several of the western states, following boyfriends and enjoying herself. Somehow, I was dropped off in Oakland again to be adopted. I was placed in a foster home for about 6 months before I was fortunately adopted by a very caring and understanding couple. My parents gave and continue to give me all the love they could possibly muster for my benefit. They did not impress upon me any formal belief system. They worked with me as a human and had their hands quite full. Soccer was the best thing they could have launched me into. It took up a lot of extra energy that really had an infinite number of places to go. The simple point here, for our purposes, is that they pushed me through school and allowed me and helped me to formulate my own perceptions of reality, because that is what we do. I continued to grow rebellious of society and all that it was built on. Somehow I knew that my parents were not part of what I was witnessing. I knew that they were revolutionary simply in their union, and that they were a wonderful example of the direction of the human race. You will understand this if you stick it out, or maybe you understand it already. I give you credit when and where credit is due. Through the years, I have struggled with the questions, as I have come to call them. I grew to despise everything religious. Please, if you do not understand this, study some history. I will also give more details on this subject later in this book. I went through the stages of human civilization inside my head and still do today. In my head, I have excavated the churches to see that I'm a tyrant. I have converted all the churches to concert halls in my head to see that it would be better. I have replaced the church with itself having nothing to do with things that we cannot know. The churches are waiting to be gathering places slightly different than they are now, and I want one. I will be the for you every Sunday when liquor stores and small businesses should be open, unless everyone really needs to see us that bad. Perhaps we can make it an all-day event in an effort to accommodate everyone's schedule. It is very beneficial for humans to gather in mass numbers. I think we need to gather for very real reasons, each other, and the noble causes that we come together for. That includes everything from churches to coffee shops, cruises and concerts, work and the exercise afterward, from sporting to craft events. We are all just finding ways to use our time while we are here. After all, we are all gathered right now on a planet. It seems like we'll be here for a while. Through the years, as I looked around, I saw religions everywhere and identified them as the cause of everything right or wrong. But even right things were going wrong, like the American values that seemed to be working during our early colonization. I came to understand that people following various belief systems are the cause of everything, good or bad, and that they act in accordance with what they believe, no matter what those beliefs are that they are harboring. From every angle, someone would bless me, tell me that God is with me, that heaven or hell is waiting, that God is watching. The church is the only place besides school where people think about and agree upon the nature of the universe. These were the answers I was getting to the questions. I saw that this was the consensus. I knew that I really wanted to know something more true and reliable. In my youth, I really didn't know what to believe. Was I black, like all those I saw? White, like all those I saw? Gay, Christian, an athlete, an alcoholic, into drugs, Taoist? I will tell you all that I am, as well as all that you are, later. So I tried everything. I looked everywhere for answers to who we are and who I was and what this mess of a society was that I found myself in and was born into, that we were all born into. I am not the message. I spent many very hot summers in Kansas City with my father's side of the family from age 10 to 16 and would fly alone a lot. In retrospect, I really enjoyed getting away from home to think about different things, learn different rules, and experience entirely different ways of life. My grandmother, Elizabeth Kent, whom I loved very much, took me to church with her, as she was very active with her church and sang with the gospel choir, which I remember as being quite live. I could not remember the denomination, but found out by the end of all of this that she was a Methodist. After dragging me the first time, she did not have to drag me there ever again. I was keen on the cute church girls. The worst of it was being forced to attend Sunday school. Ooh, I was a furious observer. I don't think that I ever did anything overt like I'm doing now, but I may have been kicked out once or twice for my inability to sit still. I watched as those kids could recite all kinds of proverbs and fables and passages. I knew if I were to ask them any deep questions, that the response would be from that book in front of them. I did not know or understand why it plagued me so. I understand now. I was an outsider looking in on what seemed to be horror to me. I could not understand why the people had subscribed to this and not some entirely different reality. I went to college and will probably go back. In school, people declare majors. They didn't offer the complexities of life and how to change everything and everyone as a major. Like many students, I did not know what to study. I started with computers, following my father's advice that it would be a sure bet into attaining financial security in the very near future, and gave it up quickly. I decided to follow my head and change my major to sociology. Finding that to be too limited, I settled on psychology, one of the last frontiers amongst the sciences, and still heavily ridiculed today. My minor was philosophy. Surprise, surprise. I took many other classes for this reason. I was studying the life of the human race and the past of the universe. I decided that every subject was easy to comprehend and each subject very important to the whole picture. I studied writing, math, physics, chemistry, evolutionary biology, histories of hundreds of civilizations, anthropology, and many other classes not required to obtain the degree in order to gain a greater understanding of our existence. All of my work in the years that I spent in universities was acutely focused on figuring out what, where, how, when, and why we are, were, and will be. I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in philosophy, but walked away with a very thorough understanding of myself, the human race, and the universe. This is my occupation. I have spent my entire life wondering how I can help you to change your mind for the good of the planet and the human race. I learned that this is how it is supposed to be. I am not alone. There are many who know the basics of our existence and who do not deny the nature of our existence. They can help you too. I do hope to be busy with you in this endeavor. I wanted so badly for many years to remove religion from the brains of all people. But that would leave us with nothing to believe in, just like when we began, and an infinite number of directions to go. I had to obtain a formulation of something to believe in. What I found in all my studies is that the answers have all been written down already. One only need look in the right places and put it all together. Like any puzzle or problem, answers are unclear and ambiguous until they are not. That is to say that once you know an answer, it seems oh so simple. Does it not? Research Occam's razor. I would love to just tell you now all the answers, but apparently that is not the way that all of this works. This is one of the right places for you to look, and if I have done what I'm supposed to do, then you will toss this book to someone else when you are done and get out there and learn something new every day. Humans wrote it all down and recorded it and put it in an infinite number of places because they did not know how it all fit together and were afraid of their own discoveries. The answers are many, but can be simplified and condensed to reveal truths about life that are undeniable unless you are certifiably insane, which you very well may be. If you can hang long enough to understand that, then you will be much better off than someone who never faces that possibility. Most of what is out there is false, and you have to sift through it. Lucky for you, I have sifted through it. I have done so for my benefit as well as yours, so that you might skip through a lot of the complex philosophies and lectures and papers and history lessons and the writing and digging through personal journals to put together a picture that, to this point, has not been broadcast across the planet like other belief systems in the past, and that is acceptable to and penetrable to anyone who reads this with any bit of awareness. There was a day during my 5th year of 9 years of school that everything came together in a way that was overwhelming, to say the least. I was dwelling on the universe and all of its parts when many things became very clear in my mind's eye. The universe became clear in all of its parts. All the galaxies and stars were just sitting there, but I could fast forward and rewind, not that I cared to. I saw the universe in my head, and as an awareness could jump from one part to another, I could go further than we thought. I saw big bangs everywhere and knew that it had no beginning and will have no end. All the little things that I had learned about the universe came together as well. In a causal chain, there can be no beginning. Something must always cause something. I could see the universe moving toward entropy, the idea that all matter and the energy becomes equidistant and motionless, only to have something else come along and knock it out of whack, maybe. I realized that I was that. Thinking and looking at itself in all of its splendor, I realized that my friend sitting across the room was me, and I him. As the universe appeared to swirl in front of me, I realized my position on the planet and the position of all of us. I realized that we are everything around us aware of itself. Everything that we say, do, and think is this universe aware of many different aspects of itself. I could zoom out and see all the energy in the universe in a kind of box and know that if I had all the factors in that box, I could predict to perfection exactly what everything would do from one moment to the next, including the fact that I was doing this at that moment. I realized that I was what was inside that box, aware of itself and able to predict quite a bit. I could see the connections that occur on this planet more clearly as just that, connections. Those connections became a lot more interesting as phenomena of this planet and our existence. They were all still there in their mystery, but they became clearer to me as I realized that we are all part of this universe. The beginning of life on this planet was simple in comparison to the intricacies of the universe. I realized that time was change and that all the changes were happening at the same moment. A moment that was fleeting and infinitely divisible. Again, I would realize that I am this universe. This is everyday life now. As you read, you are the universe interpreting itself. Your awareness is a bit bewildered at that. Mine is too. The day changed everything for me and you. I could not speak for a while and spent many days in amazement. I went back to school the next day with all of this whirling around in my head and started telling other students what I had experienced. None of them fully understood, except a few. The first person to completely understand these ideas in their entirety, which blew me away in itself, was a woman. This woman became my first wife and the mother of our beautiful daughter. My roommate understood simply enough, but was stuck in some poetic depression. My best friend of 17 years came to understand these things on his own terms over the years. Another has debated with me over these things and concepts to near exhaustion and is one of my biggest supporters. I hold these people very dear to me. Over the years, many people have heard and understood many aspects of these realizations that came to fruition on that day and have been developing ever since. That was over 10 years ago. Over these years, I have continued to study and watch societies. I have familiarized myself with the people of this planet, the things that we do to each other, and have concluded that it is time for some major cognitive social changes. And this was something tangible. I had come across an understanding of something to believe in. This was not an epiphany, sudden insight. This I saw as hard work paying off. Someone had to do it, but why? Philosophy hath taught me ethics as well. You have one idea in one hand and another in another hand. The two are not the same and contradict each other. Humans do not do well with contradiction, especially when they have based a huge part of their life on something contradictory to reality. But they can do well with this type of contradiction once one realizes that they are not the contradictory ideas upon which years of life are based. If an idea is attached to an entire way of life, taking it away without replacing it quickly seems catastrophic for a person. I had a whole new array of questions and considerations, which will be addressed in forthcoming sections, that took 10 years of careful contemplation to figure out. I would take more time on it if I were not aware that my time is running out, and if the need were not so urgent, as I believe your time to be running out as well. Things are changing already, with or without me, and I would like to help everyone with this for as long as I'm able. Life is great when it is about the enjoyment that we all may experience. Without you, I would not need to do any of this and could live blissfully, physically and mentally. But you are many people who could be doing so much more to help each other. This is the only way I know to help everyone. We must govern ourselves, period, as my mother would say. One of the pressures that I received to put all of this to you is the way that humans are behaving these days. Check the copyright date. Belief systems are failing, and no one seems to have something that sticks. In Jesus' day, everyone had a new prophecy, some new message from some new God. This was possible because absolutely no one could prove otherwise. Well, here it is again. Another guy running around with a new belief system to raise everybody's hopes and help us all govern ourselves a little more appropriately. The difference here is that we have discovered and researched this planet in ways that no one could have ever foreseen or imagined. Many of our discoveries contradict what we thought. Oops. Yet our minds remain with ideas that are centuries and millennia old. We have the ability to quickly update our knowledge of the questions and their subsequent, I love that word, answers. How, you say? We are a race of humans. We can do whatever we please. Is that not obvious? I have worked very hard for all of this and have kept my mouth shut and my brain, eyes, and ears open at all the right times, it seems. However, I am not what is most important here. We must believe that human existence here can be harmonious. Today, the humans on this planet are pretty far from these realizations collectively, but we must start from many different locations if we are to cover this territory. These ideas are supposed to work for themselves in you like medicine or a kind of mental decongestant. Energeticism stands alone quite nicely. There is a lot more that led me to you and to do all of this: friends, family, experiences, travels, acquaintances, professors, counselors, and the like. It took me a very long time to realize that I love you enough to share this with you. I have to admit I do like it a lot. I wrote down that I love it, but I feel like it's too emphatic for the audio, you know. I really am glad. Anyway, I have seen and learned what has been done to others like me who have attempted to cause some major changes like these. They've been bashed by society for the most part. There are many fine examples: Socrates, Jesus, Siddhartha Gautama, Clinton, Descartes, Hawking. Basically, anyone else you can think of who stood up against some aspect of the mediocrity that society often chooses to settle for. There are many who support me and whom I trust. I've always had this passion, and wherever I go and start talking deeply, people become fascinated and encourage me to continue. Sometimes they become frustrated. There are dangers to this knowledge. It is not all peaches and cream. Just like everything that we perceive, there is a very dark side to energeticism that one must work through. It really isn't energeticism itself. It is your reaction to it that worries me in the short and long run. It gives you power, control, and responsibility over everything that you encounter, including yourself and other organisms, if you choose to accept and use it. Remember, everyone has the same power at their discretion to use in reaction to you. Here, I am speaking of physical laws, human laws, and animal law. I do all of this because you are human and deserve respect from yourself and others. Others deserve respect from you. You did not choose to be here, much less did you choose to understand why you are here. No one has provided you with any firm understanding of your predicament. I believe you will read this again further along, so I will not go too far into it. Everything that I have experienced has led me to believe that the world would be wise to have a heightened sense of awareness of itself so that we may cease much of the nonsense that we see every day. I do this so that you may be aware that you are aware. I grew up with humanity's history plaguing my awareness, brain, and mind. If I do nothing with acquired knowledge, then I fail myself and you. I know that I am not alone. I have kept my eyes open to everything and shunned no person for their existence. It is very difficult to separate myself from all of this, but it is separate from me, for I am only the awareness of it. One of the reasons that it has taken me so long to present this to you like this is that I needed time to calm down. In me dwells the pain and rage of humanity, which is how all of this started for me. In humans, anger is a driving force of change. I moved in the directions that I did as a result of being incredibly upset by what I have come to realize is just the way that the human race is. Had I attempted to speak my mind in high school, I would have just cursed and screamed a lot and made a little bit of sense. In college, I would have bashed the entire human race with as many advanced words and phrases and intellectual uppercuts as I could fathom amidst my studies. Later, I came to realize that the layman has never understood that form of message in the past either, and that one need go through tons of schooling just to understand the words that are used to describe the human predicament there. The last 10 years have been very formative in the development of something that might be more understandable. I have checked this knowledge in every way that I know how against everything that I can find that we have done and researched, and against everything that seems to exist in the universe. I think that about covers it. Feel free to double check and find contradictions in these pages, but please remember that I am human and I am the universe reacting to itself. You will feel that I am still very upset with humanity, as I believe you should be as well. Even though I am deeply hurt and disturbed by all that I have come to understand about us, I try very hard to speak as the universe aware of itself, and truly speak as though it really does have something to say about the way that it is governing itself on this planet. I am the universe speaking to you right now. You are speaking to yourself as the universe aware of itself. In this way, I feel the need to convey these points to you as elegantly and effectively as possible. And I do so in consideration of as many individual positions that I can fathom. I do all of this with 7 billion people as my audience. You will see and feel how I feel about all of this, and deep inside me, what I think it should do for us. I have done everything that I possibly can to deliver these messages peacefully. they are to be used peacefully. Unless you still have not learned from the past to see what we do with perfectly good information, like how splitting atoms led to the bombing of a country twice. If a cocaine addict who's missing all of his teeth tells you that you should love yourself more, will you say that he is wrong because he is a crack addict with no teeth who obviously could use some good love himself? The message is not the messenger. I am but a messenger. I'm not saying that I'm a crack addict either. Hypocrisy is very underrated. A good hypocrite is always striving for something better, all the while knowing that no amount of striving will deliver perfection in behavior. We can never quite achieve that perfect image that we conjure in our minds of what is to come, but we keep trying. That is a good hypocrite. To call someone a hypocrite is to discount their information as false and invalid because they cannot follow it themselves. Think about that. I tell you that we need to cut down on fuel emissions because we're all going to die. This statement has a certain amount of truth to it, but you refuse to apply it to you because I said it, and I drive my car all the time, and Las Vegas, Nevada still has lights. Thus, the statement loses a lot of its value that it should carry with it by itself in the eyes of the human race. The point is that I may be a beggar next year, and this information will be in circulation. If I commit murder, will it all be worthless? I better stay out of trouble then, huh? Because you need a righteous person to look up to because you're not looking up to yourself. You need someone to lead by example to show you that it can be done. These accusations of hypocrisy that humans use serve as just another way to keep us all confused and distrustful of one another. Some of the wisest things are said by thugs and prostitutes, even though they are not aware that they are wise statements at certain moments. That, if dwelt upon them for a few more moments, would have them choosing a slightly different path, which could mean an entire reality of difference. All I can say regarding what I do in my personal life and for you is that I will do my best for you. I am not your beliefs. You are not your beliefs. I am one of 7 billion people who is aware that he is not his beliefs. Before you glare at me with accusatory eyes and spiteful glances, please take a good look at yourself. If you proceed, I feel you will have no choice but to do this very thing. You will understand more clearly why you matter so much when you try to understand other energetic beings. You are one of 7 billion perceivers on this planet right now who govern it. Your reactions to any of this are the most important things that you will ever deal with in this one and only life that you have the pleasure of knowing. I have merely taken all that is apparent and put it together in a certain form in response to energetic patterns and events that have been presented to me that continue to wreak havoc on humanity. I am but a messenger. We are the universe talking, and I am one. There have been so many moments where I would find myself asking, why me? Why does all of this well up in me? Why have I done nothing but work to figure out something remotely better for the human race? Everyone else would think that I was chosen. Really, that's how it feels. All these years have passed. I have come to realize a very different and much simpler reality. Humanity and its history is very irritating. It actually hurts to think about. As I've been writing this, I have lost count of the number of times I started crying in response to humanity's pain that I'm addressing. I cry because we are in pain and because I am addressing it, finally. My skin will thicken as I become accustomed to having finally addressed and worked to change the human predicament that seems to have no mercy upon itself. There is so much more to know about the lost philosophe, me. But again, I am not the subject. I am a messenger for you. I thought You might want to know who is sending the message. I am relaying the message only. It was delivered by your ancestors, all those who live with you now, and you. Over the years, I have come to understand the question that drives me to give all of this to you. Why me? We now turn to the question that drives you to complete this chapter and move on to the next. Why now?